everyone, my name is ToreiKY and welcome to Round the Mulberry Bush. This is a kinetic visual novel by Ebi-Hime. Unlike Prince Caterpillar, I won't be making any decisions in it. It's pretty much just one route through the game. So I guess it's more like a picture story rather than a choose your own adventure kind of thing. That's like the best way I can think about comparing it. Let's go ahead and get started. 1789, the first summer. On the first summer, my life changed forever. It was not the first summer of my life, of course, for I had lived through 12 summers prior, and this was to be the 13th. It was, however, the first summer that I met her, and my whole life started anew, just as the melting winter snow heralds the coming spring. All the days and months and years that preceded a long string of once were summers, like stagnating pools, ceased to matter. They were nothing more than a dull noise, a background hum. Unimportant. Everything was and is utterly unimportant when compared to her. Oh, this is pretty. The summer we met was warm, as all summers with her seemed to be, free from icy chills or unexpected showers. I remember the sunlight that filtered down from above, intercepted by the leaves, dancing across her face, her skin, her hair, like flickering fireflies. That was the first impression I had of Matilda Addison. I was in awe of her beauty, even back then. She wasn't perfect, though. In fact, she was far from it. She was nothing like the little girl I saw in the portrait later, hanging above the fireplace, enshrined with a gilt frame. She was rumpled, eyes wide like an unbroken colt's. Loose curls fell around her shoulders, framing her heart-shaped face, catching in the glorious summer sun. And of course, there were her cheeks, her lips, her fingertips. They were a harsh, unmistakable black red, so intense I could almost believe she had been digging her fingers inside the carcass of a dying baby bird. But no lady would have done such a cruel and terrible thing, and she was undeniably a lady. I was painfully aware of the fact, though. She was only 9, I 13, and I was far, far taller than her. She's so tiny. She looked at me curiously, tilting her head to one side, but there was no shame in her face, no anxiety, no awkwardness. She did not seem upset by her appearance, disheveled and dirty though it was. Instead, she observed me, chewing on a mouthful of mulberries, pushing them from one cheek to another. That's cute. I could only stare at her, cowed into silence. My fingers trembled, and I had to clench them into fists. I was afraid. This little girl, in her white dress, with her messy blonde hair, had managed to unnerve me. I wondered what I should do. She had never met me before, and she had no idea who I was, though I knew who she was, and that seemed horribly unfair in my mind. I might have been old enough to work and sweat and swear with men more than thrice my age, but it had not been so long ago that I played at being a knight, a soldier, a brave hero with the boys who lived down the road. That childlike naivety still clung to me like dewdrops on a morning grass. My head was full of dreams, my heart full of hopes. She may have been the daughter of a noble, but she was just a little girl, and she would bleed when she was cut, like I. She deserved to know my name when I knew hers, an equivalent exchange. But I was deluding myself if I thought my name was worth as much as her own. She would have been accustomed to being known. She was, after all, of noble stock. Her family was not the wealthiest in Lancashire, but they were wealthy enough. I wondered how much money her dress had cost, and her socks, and her shoes, and the strip of crimson ribbon that decorated her hat. It was probably more than my family earned in a year. It was more than I would earn in 10 years. It was disgusting, so disgusting that I could hardly bear to look at her. Her dirty face, her smeared fingers, the rumpled folds of fabric that comprised her summer dress. I remember feeling small and slighted, despite my recent growth spurt. It felt like she was judging me, though I knew, and I was being foolish, she was just a little girl, far littler than me. But the gulf between us, our social status, was insurmountable chasm. And I had been arrogant enough to assume my name was worth anything to her. Why should it have been? I was just another servant, as interchangeable as the seasons, undistinguishable from the rest. That is kind of sad. Aw. As if she would care. But though I had always loved reading fantastical tales of chivalry and romance and daring do, I somehow managed to read her all wrong. She swallowed a mouthful of fruit pulp and fruit juice, her delicate throat convulsing, and wiped her lips with the back of her arm. The juice streaked across her cheek, across her wrist, in a red ribbon. A defiant statement. She did not seem to care. So, Mr. My breath caught in my throat, and I found myself feeling dizzy, lightheaded. The birds that chirped in the nearby trees fell softly silent. At least they seemed to. In reality, they were still twittering away merrily, just as before, but I had drowned them out. My own anxieties had silenced them. My heart was beating so hard, I worried it might rupture. She seemed unaware of my plight. Perhaps it was because she was accustomed to seeing servants, lesser beings, struck dumb in her presence. She had been brought up with a silver spoon in her mouth, and I could hardly imagine how different the world she lived in was to my own. I wondered if the blue sky, the green trees, the black-red juice, and the pulp on her fingers were even brighter, more brilliant to her eyes than mine. "Did you come here to eat the fruits too?" she asked in her voice, lightly innocent, like she did not know I had come here to serve her. I glanced at the withered old mulberry tree, the branches groaning under the weight of those dark fruits. The girl had harvested an expansive crop of her own, but there were yet more fruit to be had. Far, far more. Maybe it was because I was feeling anxious, but I found myself recalling something my mother had told me a long time ago. "You shouldn't eat too many," I told her. "If you do, you'll get a stomachache." The girl replied, slightly lackadaisical. She seemed to ponder the point, but only for a while, and then tossed it aside carelessly with a small shrug. "Well, it's too late for that." I suppose it is," I conceded, running one hand through my hair. "How many berries have you eaten?" "I don't know," she replied, digging the tip of her toe into the dirt. Got a little bit sassy. For the daughter of a noble family, she was incredibly grubby, and not just a little, around the edges, but all over. Her dress was stained, and her shoes were tarnished with splotches of dirt, and there was a rime of grime beneath every single one of her fingernails. All of a sudden, I did not feel afraid of her anymore. She might have been a lady, but she was what my mother would have called a mucky pup. Sorry. Oh, man. Oh, you too. So, she said in her funny little voice, far too serious, do you want some? I don't know if I should. I mean, I'm just a servant. I've not seen your face before, she said, peering up at me as though she had only just realized. Did she think I was trying to trick her? Who are you? Oliver, was my simple response. I was a simple boy, and I did not feel the need to elaborate. The girl nodded seriously as though trying to commit a Shakespearean sonnet to memory. Her cheeks puffed out like they had done when she had been sorry. I'm just picturing her with these like chipmunk cheeks. Okay, sorry. Her cheeks puffed out like they had done when they had been stuffed with mulberries, and I found myself smiling despite myself. Okay, Oliver, she said once her brain had been thoroughly fertilized with this piece of knowledge. You are a servant? A stable boy. Make sure you watch out for crab apples. She bites. Thank you. I shall keep that in mind, I said. I wished I was wearing a hat so I could tip it for that small act of benevolence. But I was not, so I could not, and did not. My father also works as a stableman. You might know him. Oh! The girl's eyes lit up. It seemed she did know him because she clapped her hands together. Are you related to Eddie? That's right. Oh, good, she said. I like Eddie. He's nice to me. He tells me lots of stories, and he always makes sure to slip Crabapple a sugar cube, even when she's being naughty. And does he slip one for you too? Shh. She held a black-red finger against her equally black-red lips, her eyebrows furrowed. That's supposed to be a secret. All right. I apologize. My mistake. She looked at me archly. Make sure you don't tell Mummy. She said I shouldn't eat too much sugar. She thinks it'll spoil my appetite. She's right. I'm sure she wouldn't want you eating all those mulberries either. The look of intense concentration was back on her face, and she pondered, rocking back and forth on her heels. But not for very long. She turned, the skirts of her dress fluttering, reaching up to the very tip of her toes to the boughs of the tree, and nimbly twisted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mulberries off the branch with a well-practiced hand. Jeez! Shut your eyes, she told me, her tone stern and authoritative. And take what Providence will send you, I asked. Her brow furrowed. Please, take this seriously. This is no time to recite nursery rhymes. I laughed. I apologize. I could not help myself. She scowled. It was probably a technique she had learnt from her mother, like she had learnt harried concern for mine. Maybe that was why I found myself obeying her, though she was shorter than a pixie. Obligingly, I let my eyelids fall shut and waited. As I waited, I could feel sweat beading on my back, beneath my shirt. The wind tousled my hair, and the sun beat down on the nape of my neck. Stretch out your hand, was her next instruction, and I did. I extended my arm, the palm facing upwards, and she deposited the 5 black glossy mulberries upon it. I blinked, lashes fluttering. I looked down at the spoils in my palm. She must have pierced one of them with her fingernails because they leaked black-red fluid onto my skin. I said I didn't want any, I told her, but she wasn't having any of it. No, she said firmly. You eat them. You have to. Why? I asked. So you can't tattle on me to Mummy, she said, as though it was that simple, and that took care of that. If you try, I'll tell her you picked the mulberries first, and you told me to eat them. Oh, she's only 9 and she's already blackmailing. Wow. If that is your plan, you shouldn't have told me it. I'm hardly going to fall for it now. Well, I'm not going to eat those mulberries, she said stubbornly, turning a nose up in the air. Somebody has to. I can just drop them. The birds will eat them. Don't you dare, she said crossly, stamping one foot against the ground. I gave them to you. It's a present, and it's rude to refuse a present. I was beginning to feel like one of those mulberries were more akin to criminal evidence than a lovingly prepared present, but I did not want to upset her. Not on our first day, our first meeting. It did not seem worth it. Even back then, I did not want to upset her. All right, I said as I trying to placate her. I'll eat them. Will that make you happy? It would be Okay. Gosh. She's funny. It would be acceptable. Well, this attitude for such a tiny little thing. Fine. Then here goes, I said as I tipped back my head and dropped the mulberries onto my tongue. Ooh, looks like blood. They were sharp, tart, and when I bit through the skins of the blackberries, bitterness spread through my mouth, making the tip of my tongue quiver. Maybe they needed a couple more days to ripen, to become sweeter, more palpable, but she was an impatient girl, and she would have never waited for something like that. She wanted the berries now, so she had to have them now, even if their flavor was too sharp, too pointed, like a knitting needle through the roof of the mouth, and they made her stomach churn in the night so she could not sleep. She never thought about the future. Spirited, some would say. If you were inclined to be kind, like some of the servants who did not have to interact with her on a frequent basis. Impetuous, her mother always said with a pained sigh. I just thought she was stubborn. Well, she's happy now. So, this is our little secret, right? She asked with a smug little smile. You brat. She was so pleased with herself and her cunning. One would have thought she had managed to dupe a gentleman detective. Well, who was I to spoil her fun? I was starting to enjoy it myself. That's right. Our little secret, I said. You won't tell Mummy, will you? She asked, her eyebrows furrowed over her bright green eyes. I took one step backwards as though shocked by the mere suggestion, and said, I would not dream of it, milady. Good, she said, and then she paused, frowned, still digging the tip of her shoe against the ground. But you don't need to call me that. What? Milady. But I am your servant. I know, but I don't like it. It sounds strange, she said, pouting. She did not elaborate why it sounded strange. Maybe she did not have the words to express herself, but I think I understood. We were not so very far apart in age, And after I'd eaten those slightly underripe mulberries, maybe she thought we had made some kind of bond, a pact. I had promised. Well, what should I call you? I asked her. My name, she said simply. She said so many things simply, then and now, as though she expected the world to bow to her every single whim. She was the kind of girl who would say, I wish it would stop raining, and sincerely believe that it would. In fact, she would have been offended if it did not. Because she was so used to getting her own way, and the mere suggestion that some facts of life could not bow to her every whim was preposterous to her. Unthinkable. She was spoilt, horribly so. But that, if anything, only endeared me to her further. Your name? All right, I said with a small nod of my head, as though it was not important. As though I was not overstepping my bounds, my rights, and acting far, far beyond the station of a mere stable boy. Maybe she did not realize what a great sacrifice I was making for her. Maybe she did. And she just did not care. It's nice to meet you, Matilda. Oh, she's happy again. The smile that spread across her face was so wide, so dazzling. It made me wonder whether she was a human girl at all, and not an angel descended from heaven. Really? How could I hate her? I have never hated her, not for a moment. Though there have been times where I have wished that I could throttle her, or smother her with a pillow, or strangle her with her own hair, because she can be so thoughtless and insensitive and selfish, but wow, this is pretty, really? You want to basically kill her, but hate her? Oh no, I've never hated her. She was far too bright, far too bold. I'm worried about this person now. You're thinking, I don't know. Far too beautiful. 1790, the second summer. Okay, so I'm gonna end it here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're enjoying this. It's interesting, like the music is really, really pretty. Like I can't get over that. I don't know, like I'm kind of getting an uneasy feeling about Oliver. I mean, I understand she's a brat, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm not even sure what I'm saying, but anyways, I hope you're having a great day and I'll see you next time. Bye.